All right, thank you everybody for joining us this evening. I would like to introduce to you all Nick Repak. Nick is the founder and president emeritus of Grad-Resources, a national nonprofit organization dedicated to supporting the needs of graduate students, including the Grad Student Crisis Hotline. Nick is also a member of the National Advisory Board for NAGPS and has agreed to spend some time talking to us about the hotline. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Nick.
Thank you. So I actually started Grad-Resources just a couple of years after NAGPS got started. And so the early founders of NAGPS used to always say, we address quality of life issues, life skills, those kinds of things, and they address representation issues. And so it's been a wonderful partnership ever since. So I have done time management talks for NAGPS national conferences on several occasions. But when I read about a student at Harvard who was overwhelmed in his studies and oppressed by his advisor, I knew that a time management talk or an article on stress or fatigue wasn't going to address his deepest point of need. And so we decided to create a tool that would be available 24/7 with trained counselors who understand the unique struggles of graduate students. And so we created the National Grad Crisis Line in 1999. The promotion of the crisis line has been almost exclusively through NAGPS Network, Grad-Resources Network, Facebook posts. The Council of Graduate Schools has been very gracious to include a note in their outgoing CGS communicator newsletter on multiple occasions. The primary directive of the promotion has been during orientations, Christmas, and what we call the holiday stress email messages, because the university facilities are often closed when students are at their greatest need during the holidays, time of depression for so many of them, and then during National Grad Awareness Week. So as we would work together with NAGPS to get word out, particularly during Grad Appreciation Week, we would see a spike in calls whenever there was a special promotion done. So a couple of years ago, we partnered with NAGPS in promoting the crisis line. And in 1 week, 4 students who were in the midst of their suicide checked Facebook one more time, saw a post about the crisis line, and called in, and their lives were saved. That is the ultimate goal of the crisis line, is to be there during that time of such despair that people see no other hope but to end their lives. And so we determined that there are about 1,000 calls per year to the crisis line, and 25% of those callers are at a serious point of despair, considering suicide at that point of their call. So as you can imagine, you guys would know better than I do, that there are some unique stresses faced by graduate students at certain times in their lives, at certain points in the stage of their grad career. Qualifying exams are almost always a bear that get people down at horrendous times. Advisor conflicts are almost always a primary issue faced by those callers to the crisis line. Financial pressures are another one. Relational problems, as you can imagine, with anyone. That can be a point of despair for graduate students when they feel like there's no one who understands their calling to academics and position in a family. That creates conflict in a partner relationship. And so we want to always be there for those students at their point of despair. I would say that where the average of the call volume is fairly steady throughout the year, when the Grad Appreciation Week comes in, there is a spike of callers because there's a new exposure that had not been given them. The most severe spike we saw was during a week years ago when a shooter walked into a Denver movie theater and started shooting up the theater. Several were killed, many were wounded. It later came out that that was a graduate student, that the day he failed his qualifying exams, he went out and bought his first rifle. When he was preparing to walk into that movie theater, 9 minutes before he started shooting, he tried to call his university mental health facilities, and they were closed. We want everyone to know that we are a supplement. The crisis line is a supplement to the existing mental health facilities on each campus that are absolutely wonderful and take a wonderful job of addressing graduate student issues. But when that is not an option, we want graduate students to know that there is a place that they can always turn to get help 24/7 from counselors who understand their unique challenges. Now, it may not be during a season where the mental health facilities are closed. It could simply be that that student is so concerned about the way they might be perceived in the university if a weakness was known. They were struggling with depression, or they were concerned about their standing within the university, and they didn't feel comfortable calling their own mental health facility for fear that weakness would be known in their department. The National Grad Crisis Line is open 24/7 and probably 1,000 miles away from that student's campus. So the source of anonymity is one of the main draws for the National Grad Crisis Line, that you can call, get help, and know that no one will ever find out at your university. Just a point of interest here. When we founded the crisis line, we put in multiple firewalls so that the graduate students would feel absolutely comfortable with being able to talk with great vulnerability and transparency without fear of being discovered by their university, by a colleague, or by us. We never received any contact information from anyone who has ever called the crisis line. Now, it's been fun to get an email afterwards occasionally when somebody says, I just called the crisis line and that counselor was the most insightful, empathetic person who was right there at my time of need. And I print those messages out and post them on the board as a reminder that this service is saving lives, and we don't have to know who it was who called in and was rescued. So that's an education I had to get when I determined to start the crisis line. Had no idea how challenging it would be to establish such a unique service. But you might have some questions too about how the crisis line functions for graduate students. So Thad, if it's okay with you, I'm going to go ahead and open it up to you guys to ask questions about the service.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and since we got a pretty small group here, I don't think we're going to need to go with raising hands. If you guys got a question, feel free to call.
Yeah, right.
Hi, I'm sorry if I missed the introductions part, but I had to do something. I had to attend a call first. So I'm Jasmine. I'm a third-year grad student in the entomology department, and I'm actually finalizing my master's right now. And I think I'm not going to pursue a PhD anymore. So yeah, I guess the entire time I was planning to just do a master's, but there was always that little like voice in my head that was like, oh, maybe you should do a PhD. But I guess my question is the service free?
It is.
You call, okay. And then, yeah, I guess, I'm going to try and make this more public. So I'll probably share these resources because this is really cool. I really, I was looking forward to this. So thanks for being here.
Glad. Well, good luck on your next stage, whatever that might be. Doesn't have to be a PhD in order to secure a job and move on in your next stage of life. It just, some people are gluttons for punishment and they go for the PhD.
So I have a small doubt. Suppose the student who calls the crisis line seems to be like unstable, they need multiple sessions of, say, counseling. How does that work?
Oh, that's just a brilliant question. We have had that concern because a very, very, very high percentage of callers are generally a one-time call. They are at a point of despair and they just need someone to talk to. There are other resources, and certainly you're welcome to call the crisis line as many times as you wish. There is no cap on the number of calls. There is no charge after your first 20, but there are other resources that are designed for someone who is perhaps in a struggle for the long haul. We're in negotiation right now with a company called BetterHelp.com that provides teletherapy for any student, that would provide weekly Zoom contact, unlimited text connections, and about the ballpark is around $70 or $80 per month. We're negotiating so that graduate students could have access to the service for about half that. So hopefully we'll be able to provide that. Part of the reason that we're doing that is students in Europe had been able to Skype into the crisis line, but that is no longer a possibility. We are particularly concerned about Ukrainian scholars. We want them to have all the resources they need to face what is currently a PTSD situation for so many of them. And we believe that ongoing teletherapy is a better solution than a one-time call to a crisis line. So feel free to call it as many times as you wish.
Yeah, totally. Got it. And okay, I had one more question.
Sure.
So I just seem to like, let me take a minute if you don't mind.
You take a minute, we'll go on to another question.
Yeah, sure.
Has anyone tried a support group at their campus? So
Great idea, but we don't have one. I don't know.
I know. And so that's another tool that we would like to launch, is a support group that connects peers, let's just say in a safe environment where they're not concerned about walking into a mental health facility and running into undergraduates who are in classes that they TA. We just don't ever want that to happen to a PhD student. And so we are hoping to create Zoom groups just for students to talk about the process that they've faced, the struggles, the challenges, and the impact on their emotional well-being. So hopefully we'll be able to produce something like that in the future.
Yeah, that would be great. And if there's anything that you want publicizing that sort of thing, please just let us know and we're happy to do it. Because I've gone through the same thing personally. I used some of the groups at my university, and it was me, one other grad, and then 4 undergrads. There were really not any other grads to group me up with, which was unfortunate. And luckily I was past the point where I was TAing then, but I doubt I would have used the service if I was.
And it's quite understandable. That's a natural concern when you're trying to maintain a certain position within a department, whether as a TA or even as a researcher. You want to have the maximum credibility that you can among your peers and your advisors. So totally understandable.
Oh yeah. And I got my question. So this is say somewhat related to the say to the sense of belonging. So there is also like some mental health going around, having the sense of belonging in the place that you are newly put into, say international students or like students of the same community, but then they are into the LGBTQ community stuff. So since it's not like broadly accepted yet, how are the counselors like, can they also call the hotline for things like this, so they can have a clear idea where to like go next, or like how, what kind of say solution, or like what to think of next to sort this kind of say obstacle or something?
Well, I think you had a good insight earlier when you asked the question of repeat calls. So a lot of these types of connections and struggles that you're talking about, finding the right community or dealing with struggles with the community or dealing with the isolation, those can be sometimes an ongoing concern. And having a support group might be more beneficial for that ongoing thing, or a teletherapy option. But the crisis line is always available for any student to call, and we will address questions of connectedness and community, relational partners, LGBTQ issues. There will be no sense of judgment and purely a connection to help you get through that moment of your struggle.
Great. Yeah, that's all from my end.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I've got one. So Nick, in previous conversations we've had about the resource, we had talked about, was there did you guys, you say see specific spikes around events? Did you see a general uptick, during the pandemic at all? Was that a big stressor that you guys saw over the past year or two?
Thad, that's a great question. And I would have to say, I don't know. And partially it's because the data collection during the time of the pandemic was not at its best, because there was a transition going on at the crisis line, at the management level. And so where we had previously had monthly reports and even anecdotal comments from students, where we would know a little bit more of the type of call issues that were coming in. We've been a little disconnected from that. And our next phase will be determined on how much data and how much anecdotal information we'll be able to receive based on funding, because apparently now there is a funding issue, and they are needing to be compensated for the calls that they have taken in. They have not charged us in 22 years, and that is now changing. So we are about to submit a grant to invite foundation funding that would increase not just record keeping, tracking, but also exposures and the quality of service in terms of quickness of answering the calls, various things like that, more resource, more consultants on call. So it is probably the next couple of months that will determine how the crisis line will move together in the future. So excellent question. Wish I had a better answer for you.
No, thank you. And just as also, as things are moving over the next couple of months, if there's anything we can do to help, please do let us know.
Thanks, I will. So one of the things we're going to experiment with in the coming year is also assigning professional leadership coaches to up and coming PhD students who are striving for leadership positions. So we would hope that some of our trained volunteers who just went through this training in late February would be able to connect with some students who desire to have not just academic excellence, but also personal growth and individual involvement in organizations like NAGPS. They may not currently feel like they can balance family, academics, maybe work or whatever, but we can help them actually develop in leadership capabilities and the capacity to take on leadership roles in local grad student associations. So we just need to get some funding to cover these new developments moving forward. We will always be there regardless, but some of the funding that might come through in some of these new arenas could help put additional tools in the toolbox for students.
Yeah, awesome. And very glad to hear that this is going to be sticking around either way, because this is an incredible resource.
Thank you.
So where do we find the number for the crisis hotline?
So it would be on our gradresources.org website, and it'll have a full description and some of the background, the history behind it. Hopefully we can find it on NAGPS at some point on the website. There's probably a couple of other promotional areas where it is out there, but it needs to be ubiquitous. It needs to be on top of mind. It needs to be such a recognized tool for graduate students that everyone knows exactly where to go to get that number. But it's 877 grad HLP, 877 grad help HLP. And you can feel free to call in anytime. So the US is about to get a universal number for mental health. And we were concerned that that was going to divert attention from the grad crisis line, because 988 is going to be the new universal number for anyone to call in for mental health concerns. But we believe there needs to be dedicated counselors who understand the grad student struggle specifically. Almost no one in the world would understand the complications of managing a committee. Almost no one else would understand the setbacks in research that you face daily. And we just believe that there needs to be a dedicated line for graduate students who are struggling with their unique challenges, and they have someone on the line that understands. But come July, there will be 988 introduced across the country. Now, perhaps you can say, is there anything else that we could do for you to address whether mental health, quality of life, any other things that we might be able to do to help you push through your grad experience, other than funding or getting you a job?
I think that I mean, I don't know how much. It's probably, I'm just creating conversation here, but maybe something where it is kind of required from PIs to learn and educate themselves, because I feel that it's so easy. It's like they are under all this pressure to just get research published and bring in money, and then they literally start making us like feel like we're disposable, you know, because it just feels like there's like it's not a requirement to be humane in academia, I feel. Yeah.
I think that is brilliant. There needs to be training for anyone who's in an advisor role so that they do not become abusive, so that they do not overstep or take advantage of graduate students when it serves only their publication, research, and funding goals. Graduate students need to be recognized for their contribution in making that advisor successful. Because as you know, all the advisors love to track their academic tree, people who have been through their department, and well, they contributed significantly, and the right graduate student advisor would recognize and support and affirm the role of the graduate students in their success. I would say one other thing. Texas A&M is a leader in this regard, and that is training department heads and academic administrators in being able to equip the advisors in recognizing severe signs of depression. So there is a wonderful organization called QPR Institute that trains millions of people in how to recognize signs of depression, how to ask the right questions in order to determine, is this truly a struggle and does it need to be recognized? QPR Institute is outstanding, and QPR simply stands for question, persuade, and refer. What are the types of questions to identify whether this individual is currently at a point where they may do themselves harm or someone else? How do we persuade them to not take a step, to not follow through on a plan? How do you get them to promise that they will step back from that point of despair and not act rashly? And then how do we refer them to the local resources who could provide ongoing help? So QPR training is awesome. And some of the people on this very call have been certified as QPR gatekeepers. So QPRinstitute.com.
Yeah, and just also wanted to tack on a little bit. I put this in the chat a minute ago. One of our partner organizations is the FARM Project, Framework for Accountability in Academic Research and Mentoring. So they are a similar organization to NAGPS insofar as advocacy work, but they focus entirely on advisor-advisee relationships, and they have a lot of really cool resources, policy documents and stuff on their website as well. Absolutely welcome to go check those out. And yeah, no, the advisor-advisee stuff is, yeah, echoing what you said earlier, Nick, as one of the main causes of some of this stuff is it can be really stressful, especially when, you know, they have almost a lot of power over your life as a student and after.
And frankly, a lot of them haven't achieved a level of emotional quotient that would make them relationally sensitive to the struggle of their graduate students. And sometimes they need moderating just as anyone else in authority and position could be an abuser. So thanks that I made note of that Farm Project website.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and one of the things that has been highlighted to me from them is the mindset of some advisors, especially older advisors, that of course I know how to advise students. I've advised a bunch of students.
Yeah, kind of important to stay teachable, no matter how old you get.
Absolutely.
Well, I just want to thank you for giving me a moment to talk about something that is near and dear to my heart in terms of meeting students at the point of their greatest need and having a supportive voice available to them to push through this one struggle in life that is going to pass. And your greatest contribution is yet to come. And you don't need to let this one hurdle stop you from moving forward in your life plan, career, and goals. So if there's no other questions, we won't keep you on any longer. How about you, Thad?
I think I've gotten in as much as I wanted to, and I understand that it is a Friday night, and thank you everybody for tacking on to what I assume is already a busy schedule for another hour of Zoom at the end of the week. So again, kudos to you all, and thank you again to Nick for spending some time with us on this. Really appreciate
My pleasure. Great to see you guys. Good luck
Thank
in
you
your
so
studies.
much. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.